Hello and welcome to the RPG Blender, where we give lesser played games and forgotten settings the roll the dice they deserve. I'm your host, Game Master George, and today we'll be continuing our tutorial series on one of my favorite spooky month games, Don't Rest Your Head. Last time, we covered the setting, so if you missed that, go check it out here. Now today, we'll be going through the character creation process. Along the way, we'll give details on each step of the process, as well as an example of the step being completed. This video will, as always, be geared more toward people looking to run the game, but this video specifically will also be helpful to players looking to make their character. That said, this is a process that should absolutely be done with the involvement of your GM, so make sure that they are on board with you following our guide. And with that out of the way, let's dive into Let's Run Don't Rest Your Head, Protagonist Creation. Character creation in Don't Rest Your Head is fairly simple, as the mechanics of the game don't rely heavily on statistics. The strength of the process is in how it builds the story potential of the characters. Due to this, while having a copy of the character sheet is helpful, your players can use just a blank sheet of paper as easily. So, let's get started. Your players will be answering 5 questions about their character. These questions are: what's been keeping you awake? What just happened to you? What's on the surface? What lies beneath? And what is your path? Let's talk a bit more about each of these. What's been keeping you awake? This question determines what caused the character to stop sleeping. This is the chance to establish some of the character's immediate history. Perhaps a fear, addiction, or haunting memory has recently taken hold and driven them to shun sleep. Encourage your players to create more than a single line. This should establish some recent events in the character's life and one of their driving forces. With the character Edwin Kane from our one-shot adventure, link here if you missed it, he is being kept awake by an intense paranoia, a sense that those around him are hiding secrets, and that they may be actively conspiring against him. This has led him to retreat to his home and be unable to bring himself to sleep, knowing his neighbor will strike should he doze. What just happened to you? This question is literal. When your player is answering it, they are establishing their initial scene for the game. It should be a moment of high stress, and while it can be completely separate from what is keeping them awake, for a short-scale game, it would likely be best to connect the two. This scene should also be somewhat open-ended, an event that should happen, but should leave room for reaction. It would also greatly affect the tone of the game for this character. For Edwin Kane, what just happened was his fears of his neighbors were proven correct, as he witnessed one drag a body into his house and begin to devour it. Naturally, this moment of fears confirmed was a suitable moment of stress, and enough to draw in the Mad City. What's on the surface? This question represents how the world sees the character upon first meeting. These are the impressions they give off through their demeanor. Your player should take into account anything that is apparent immediately on exposure to it. Appearance, voice, personality. As a game master, you can think of this as a character interaction guide. Whenever you have a new NPC interacting with the character, this question provides you with a clean and easy guide to the initial meeting. And being honest, it helps people who may have trouble with the roleplay. We aren't all trained actors after all, so the player being able to establish their outward-facing traits here helps to ease that difficulty. For Edwin Kane, his paranoia manifests in how he carries himself. He appears insecure and weak, likely avoiding eye contact or hunching slightly. Thus, characters will pick up on this when they meet him, which should be able to help establish initial NPC interactions. What lies beneath? Now, where the last question is about the initial impression, this one is about who they truly are. When their back is up against the wall, how will they respond? This is the piece of the character that is hidden from the world. It might be an aspect of themselves they're ashamed of, or which forms a secret core of their worldview. This helps flesh out the character, creating someone with a deeper picture. It also likely ties into their motivations, helping the player to guide their actions throughout the game. For Edwin, although he presents himself as timid, the fact that he continues to look into the objects of his fear shows his inner strength. He is scrappy and bold, though it takes an extreme amount of pressure for that to be brought to the surface. It pushes him toward the source of his fear rather than away from it. What is your path? With this final question, we are looking ahead to the character's future. What are the character's goals, and how does the player see their story ending? This provides a trajectory for the character's life absent of outside factors. It helps the players to think about this character they've created and how they would end up in the real world. For you running the game, it gives you suggestions for story beats which the player feels would be appropriate for the character, helping you to shape the emotional arc of the story. For Edwin, his drive to find these hidden secrets in the world leads to an inevitable conclusion, being killed by them. Given his desire to help people, he sees this end coming as a moment of sacrifice, where he sheds his timid demeanor in order to protect someone else at the cost of his life. Discipline. Alright, Enough with the questions, time for some mechanics. We'll start easy here with discipline. This represents the character's mental fortitude and self-control. It is how well they maintain some semblance of control in the Mad City. This is a simple one. Every PC starts with 3 discipline. This is an exceptional level and how they're able to become awake. Most normal people will have 1 discipline, while some special individuals may have 2. So Edwin, being a player character, marks a 3 in his discipline. Responses. Next up, we need to determine how the character reacts to moments of stress when their fight or flight instinct is triggered. Each player character will start with 3 response boxes. They will assign these as desired to fight and flight. They can be split in any way desired, even so far as giving all 3 boxes to one of them. This will come into play when moments of stress occur, prompting the response to a situation, but it should also color how the character acts in general. Are they more fearful in hostile situations, or are they more aggressive? Edwin responds to most situations with fear, but he does have a core of strength under it. His player gave him 2 boxes of flight and 1 box of fight. Exhaustion talent. Coming up on the end of this relatively easy character creation process are the talents. These are where the player gets to establish 2 unique abilities of this character, their exhaustion talent and their madness talent. We'll go into the mechanics of these when we cover the game's mechanics in the next video. For now, we'll just be choosing them. It is worth noting, while there are some examples in the book, these are free-form abilities. It is up to you and your players to come up with them. First up is the exhaustion talent. This is an ability that the character excels at, something that they could do in their normal life, but which their new awakened state allows them to push beyond the bounds of human capability. It could be anything a normal person could do. Maybe they're very fast, have an enchanting voice, or exceptionally gifted with mental calculation. This is tied to how exhausted the character is, becoming stronger as exhaustion grows, but risking pushing them to sleep. For Edwin, because his paranoia drives him to always be searching for those hunting him, his player selects perception as his exhaustion talent. He'll be able to use that when finding things, observing people, or other activities limited only by his creativity. Madness talent. The last step will be to determine the madness talent. Whereas the exhaustion talent is an ability they had in their normal life amplified, the madness talent is something which breaks reality. Some new ability unlocked by their awakening which is distinctly supernatural. The core book gives some examples: flight, telekinesis, or mind reading, but this is one of the few times I would actually recommend a secondary book. The supplement Don't Lose Your Mind has a number of far more imaginative madness talents, from weaponizing profanity to transforming items by eating and regurgitating them. Let your players get creative with this power. Launching fire is a fine ability, but this is a chance for your players to create something uniquely horrific for their character. Finishing off Edwin's sheet, he created the power Anchor of Madness. With this ability, he could tap into the Mad City to materialize items related to his paranoid delusions, or the actual madness around him. And with that, we're done! Congratulations, you now have a completed protagonist for your game. I hope this guide was helpful for you. Not that character creation is particularly difficult in this game. I'd love to hear what kind of talents you came up with, so why not drop a comment below and give some inspiration to other future players. If you'd like to pick up the book, check out the affiliate links in the description. You get a new RPG and help support the channel. And if you'd be so kind, consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. These interactions help a small channel make it in YouTube's algorithms. And if you feel particularly generous, consider joining our Patreon and help decide what our next topics will be. Come back next week when we'll tackle the rules of the game and complete your basic understanding of the system. Anyway, thank you again, and remember, there's gaming outside the Forgotten Realms.